Hey my friends, in the RV kitchen, and it is time for a really healthy, quick healthy dessert. And tonight we're making cheesecake, and it is a raw cheesecake, which is so simple to make. And there's no baking, you just a couple ingredients. So let's get started. In the whole food, plant-based diet, nuts is really important, but you can overdo nuts. You don't want to do too many nuts. But this recipe does call for a crust, which we are going to make a real simple, just a raw crust. Now you can take raw cashews, you can take walnuts, or you can take almonds. And what you do is I take about a cup and a half. And then what you're going to add, and this is kind of and here's a great staple if you decide to do some of these raw vegan recipes. You are going to need dates. Now, there's majoli dates, I think they're called. I got these, I forgot even where I got them, but they're non-GMO, they're pitted dates, and this is going to be the binder in the recipe. Now, remember, if you are a diabetic, you can have this dessert, but also consider that it may raise your blood sugar a little bit. So I'm going to do about 4 dates in here. And I like these pitted dates because I didn't have to soak them. But sometimes with the other dates, you may have to soak them to soften them up a little bit, and then you have to pit them. Some recipes call for a little bit of coconut oil, but you know what? I'm going to experiment. I'm going to see if I can just grind this up without the coconut oil. So this is what I got. It's kind of crumbly. So I'm assuming, I like to experiment because, I kind of want to do it without the coconut oil. Well, that looks like that did something. Oh, there we go. Now we got crust. See? So you can actually make this crust without coconut oil. And I'm not saying that coconut oil is bad. You can choose coconut oil. It does have some good properties in it, but we have to use all oils sparingly. All oils. And if you can do without oil, do without oil. I know people are going to freak out because I'm telling them to do without oil, but we really want to limit our oil consumption. So I just wanted to cut back on it and see if it works. And it works. So let's get it in our pie pan. This is a Starry trick. I don't have any wax paper. And, trying to spread it out with a spatula is hard because, it's a thick crust. I just took a Ziploc bag, and that way I can just press it on there uniformly without getting sticky, and it goes exactly where I need it to go. Look at that. That's an old homesteading trick. So the next is our soaked cashews. Almost every raw recipe that involves like some type of dessert, or a lot of the desserts, calls for the soaking of your cashews. So I've soaked these overnight, and what I'm going to do is drain them, rinse them, and then we are going to put them in the food processor along with the other ingredients. Now this is where you can become very creative. Many recipes call for all different types of things. You can add oil in here, you can add more dates in here, you can add your own sweeteners in here. But again, I want, for me personally, even with honey and agave and maple syrup, these are all good, acceptable sweeteners. You can add that at this time, but I choose not to add any sweetener because I've got a crust that has already the dates. And at this time, you can also put whatever type of fruit you want in it, or you could just mix this up with a lemon. But I'm going to do actually some raspberries that I have. Raspberries are really high in antioxidants. And we're just going to blend it to see how this filling turns out. This is really an experiment, but I'm trying to do an alternative vegan raw cheesecake that is actually even healthier than the standard with, a lot of the maple syrups and the guaves, which is nothing wrong with that because everything in moderation, but we're going to streamline it. The one thing I want to remind you is when you're doing any type of cheesecake that's raw, you really need a high speed speed blender, and if you have a food processor like mine, which isn't really high speed, it takes quite a long time to blend the nuts. So don't be discouraged. It's probably going to take almost 4 minutes to get it that smooth consistency. The other thing is, don't forget about your monk fruit. This is no glycemic, no calorie, no, I mean 0 and everything, and this is and no net carbs, nothing. This is a very healthy alternative. So if you want to sweeten up your raw recipe, you can throw this in here and it will not affect you at all. In fact, me with my cancer, I can add this, and those cancer cells have nothing to eat on because this is a great sugar replacement. So always remember that with any recipe. Okay, I'm going to keep blending here. Now that looks beautiful. Do you see how smooth that looks? Wow. I can't wait to try it. Taste test. I need somebody to share that with. That is really good. It's smooth. And for me, it has just enough sweetness. Now, remember, monk fruit will sweeten it up if you didn't use any honey or agave or maple syrup. I will post my original recipe, that how I did it, not according to how everybody else does it, and you can follow it, but then I'll give you alternatives if you want to sweeten up. But, oh, put it in our pie crust. Oh, now that's beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? And this is the other thing. All of these things are natural. These are things that you should have in your pantry, like your nuts. You should have cashews, you should have almonds, you should have walnuts all stacked up. Remember that because nuts have oil in them, they need to be stored in a very airtight container. And if you open them, they need to be put in the freezer or the refrigerator, okay? Because nuts will go rancid after some time, okay? Because they're not a trans fat. All right, they are actually an unsaturated fat, but a good fat in a way. You just don't want to do too many. So that's kind of a tip about storing your nuts. And your dates, you can store those on the shelf for forever as long as they are not open. But when they are open, you know, they also have a shelf life. But if they do get dried out a little bit, all you have to do is soak them in water and they'll be okay. All right, I've never had dates really go bad. They've been on the shelf for a long time. And as I remember, I had a huge box that was exposed to air. And it was a big 25-pound box, and we used that over the whole year. And all I did was just keep soaking it to soften it up. So there you go. All these things should be in your pantry. So are you prepared? And what a great, easy recipe for the family. So fast, so delicious, and so healthy. You can get your good omegas, and you can get your fruit, and it's sweet. Who doesn't like a sweet cheesecake, right? That's healthy. All right. See? Just a great recipe to get you guys on the right track. Enjoy!